Welcome to Handcrafted by G.R. Broussard. I am Greg Broussard, and today we're going to make a hand-cut dovetail box for tobacco and a pipe for the owner and operator of Crusader Media, Mike Wilson. This is the traditional pipe and tobacco box we're going to be making today. Inside it has a little box for the tobacco, and on the side compartment here you can keep your pipe and your other tools. Hand-cut dovetails, hand-cut groove in the bottom. This box is actually put together just like a drawer is. Small hand-cut dovetails on the box. Hand-carved little flower motif, if you will. Slot for the top, and a little chiseled hand-cut pull for the box. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what we went through to make this box. I found some 3/4 inch material laying around the shop, and we're going to use this to make the box with. It's going to work really good. We're going to resaw this on the bandsaw. You can see this board isn't straight, so we're going to flatten this. So we're going to do this by hand. Show a little bit more love to it. We could do it with a machine. We're going to flatten it first before we resaw it. And let's go ahead and break the plane out. Let's do that. I've straightened the bottom of this board here so I know it's true. You can see the gap that's in there. The board's doing one of these numbers. So we're going to go ahead and take the high sides off, make this side flat, and this will be our reference side, and we'll resaw it. So I'm just going to go through this process on both sides to get this thing flat. We'll put it on the bandsaw. So got the 5 out, and I think we pretty much have it flat. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I think that's flat enough to do a box. I'm going to resaw it. So let's move over to the monster saw. Let's resaw this. I could resaw with this, but to save time, we're going to use the machine on this. But we're going to cheat just a little bit. Okay, I've got this set up. I want it this thick, however thick this is. That's how thick I want it. There's a little bit of room left in there, so I can actually mill it down and get it all fancy and pretty. So I'm doing a little bit thicker. As always, I'm going to put my side to the my plain side toward the fence. My fence is square, and I don't know how thick this is. Like I said, it's just I hardly ever measure anything. I hardly even look at a ruler, not less something has to be a certain size, and other than that, it's just mark and just cut and just go. So anyway, I do everything in millimeters anyway here. All right, so let's see what happens. Now we come through and get all these saw marks off here. Let's plane these down. Let's see. Okay, that's good. Okay, I've got this lined up and marked. For those that aren't familiar with this method, I just put a stop block up. But this is 8 inches on the inside of the box, and then you take into account for your sides of the box, you know, the thickness of it, plus a little extra for messing up, plus a little bit for the kerf. So I just drew it so you can kind of see these are the edges, and from inside to inside is 8 inches. So that's how big he said he wanted the box. So that's how big I'm making the inside of the box. So I put a stop block, and I always reference to the same spot on the corner of the stop block, the spacer, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to rip these or cross cut these real quick. Okay, before we get started cutting these dovetails, remember that this was cut off one board just like this. Actually, this was split off from this piece, and I kept the grain lined up, so as we make the box, the grain will wrap completely around the box. I only cut this one as an example. Typically what I'll do is I'll cut these parts first, right? And then I'll cut these because these are razored off of this part here. So pins or tails, it doesn't really matter how it's cut. This is just the way that I do it. I'm going to show you the process I go. This is not a dovetail tutorial. It's just showing you what I do to cut these. Again, this is just the way that I do it. I watch Paul Sellers, The Wood Whisperer, Wood by Right, Rob Cosmet. I've watched a million of these videos. I practiced a ton of different ways to do this. This is the way that works for me. This is the way that I do it. So you can do this method of, you know, putting your calipers, mark in, go all the way across. You know, I've already got it set up, and it comes to the end, you mark it. Well, you know, that's fine, but these don't have to be exact. I don't think any of these things ever have to be exact, just as long as they look uniform. So I've already put my marking gauge, and I'm just going to put it like a little mark on here, if I can see that. I'll mark it with my pencil, and then I'll do the same thing. I'm just going to mark it with a pencil. Okay, that's where my first thing is going to start. So when I do this, when I draw my line, I just line up the edge of my gauge to that line. That's all I do. There's the first one. Let's do this one. I line it up. There. Right? I know this is supposed to be half the size of your pins, but I really don't care. So, and this one is set up. I'm going to start my other one. So I'll make a little dot, a little scratch in there. Right? Actually, I can see it, so I'll just mark this with my pencil. Mark this with my pencil. That's where the other one starts. So I'm going to get my gauge, and I'm going to just line the gauge up with that line. And then there you go. That's all I do. It's really not that, you know, complicated. So we're going to go ahead and take this out and that out for this one. We're going to get the depth and how far to go. This is the part that it's going to match up to, so I just simply put it on my table saw, put it up against the fence so it's straight and it's lined up, and I'll just draw a line for reference, and I'll flip it and I'll draw a line for reference. That's how deep I go. Of course, these guidelines are just like they are. They're just guidelines, and so I kind of can see what I'm doing. Like I said, there's 40 million ways to do this. I've got this that I made. I really don't like using this. I actually prefer using this. And the reason why I taped one side off is so I won't actually get use the wrong side on this one. So I'm going to mark these coming down, and then we'll mark across, and we'll carry the line to the other side. So I just like any other thing, I'm just going to razor, if I can do this without getting in the way. Oops. See, it slides on me. Nice and easy. Just like any other insert or inlay, a bow tie, just like anything else. And my taper's on the wrong side, so I see I've already made a mistake, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. So I'll put my mark on the top. So this is the side that's coming out. So I like to make the taper side on this side. So instead of having because this is a beveled edge, it's not a flat side. I don't like using marking knives. I just don't like them. So I'll put it on the inside. That way I can twist my knife, and I can have the flat side toward the side you're going to use. So I'll cut on the inside of this thing. Just like that. I know I'm cutting toward my thumb, and I have cut my thumb doing this. Probably not the safest way on earth to do this. Then carry that. Turn my part around. Right. Chop it down a little bit. Get my square, and then I'll carry my line over. From here. I always do that for some reason. I'm just going to mark. And I like marking a pretty good depth so I can see it, especially on this oak. Carry my little triangle-y thing down. See, it's not really cutting the fibers on the end grain, or going between them even, not cutting them. Okay. Now, get my gauge back out. Going to my little spot. Now, this is the waist, so let's mark that. Waist, 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 waist. My bevel side to be in the waist. So again, I'm going to go inside my marking thing. Am I going to go inside? Let me see. I need to cut it this way, so I got to cut it like that. Okay. I need to sharpen my tools. What I need to do. Remember, light passes and then slowly go down. Okay, we've got all those cut. Now let's cut the line here and on the other side. Okay, see how fat that pencil line is? So what I do is I come down to the bottom side of the pencil line because it's still, I want a little bit sticking out when the box is put together. And I push it up against this stop deal I have in my vise, the little spacer thing. And I'm going to put a little mark here so I can transfer it. And I do it on both sides just in case I need them. I mean, you only need one, but just in case I do it on both sides. Right? My little mark without moving my tool. And I only will score where it's coming out. I'm not going to go all the way across. We'll cut one with the machine. We'll cut one by hand. This is the way that I do it. I'm going to keep the saw back a little bit because I want to stay off my back line. I am cutting in my waist. Checking my back line, make sure I'm not screwing it up. Looks like we're okay. Well, I did forget to do something. Forgot to cut down first. Let's go ahead and cut down. I need to cut these. Let's go ahead and do that. We need to cut down first before we start cutting them out. So I'm in my waist, and what I do is I push this up against my hand, my two fingers, and then I have a little bit of pressure right there, right? And then I'm just going to pull back, and I'm staying well away from my razor line. Then I'm going to cut at an angle. I'm going to cut from here to this side over here. I'm watching this line and my top line, right? So I'm going to drop my hand, go to almost to my razor mark, not to my razor mark. Now I've cut halfway through. Now I'm going to start dropping the front of this thing, watching my lines. And then that's it. It's a little sideways, but see, that's why I stay away from my line, because I'm going to take that with a chisel. This is just my method. I've tried 8 million other ways to do this, and this is what works for me. And I was super happy to be able to at least get a feeling for doing this, because I have not been doing these for very long at all. So this is my method that I cut these, and it works. So I'm pushing this up against my fingers, guiding that while I pull and make my my kerf in there. Now I'm just letting the saw do the work. Watching the top line, watching my side line. Once I get halfway through, I'm going to let the rest of that cut guide my saw through there. Not even pressure, just letting it fall and stopping short of my line. And then the same thing with this. Same routine. Go halfway through. Okay, so now we got those cut like I was a ding dong. I didn't, I should have cut those first, but I didn't, but that's okay. So now we're going to cut this. Continue where I left off, staying away from my razor line. Because I'm getting close to it, so I got to change the angle of it. So it's right on my razor line. Okay, now let's show you how to do it with a machine. I'm going to stay away from my razor line. Come back in. Staying away from my razor line. Here we go. What I do is I come down with my chisel and the razor lines that I've already done. I do that first and I bring this back a little bit. Especially this one, you see how much material, how far away from my razor line I am? I'll take half of that and then I'll go to my razor line. The reason why I'm doing that is when I come in here to cut this, it seems like I mess up my corner. So I'll take these down almost perfect. Then I'll take these, then I'll come and clean this up and I'll clean the bottom of this up. And you gotta have a super sharp chisel. This thing is like super duper sharp. So let's go ahead and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We'll do this. So seeing how this one is, I left a lot of material. I'm gonna do halfway. A lot of times these things will split. The other side that I was doing, it splits down there. So I'm just gonna come in and take a little bit of this off. I'm gonna drop into my razor line and I'm gonna look. I'm looking at where my razor line is and I'm making my chisel follow that line. And I'm gonna stop right there. Now, it's a little bit sideways, but I'm gonna clean that up by hand in a minute. So I'll let this stuff just hang there. And this one, I cut really close to the razor line so I can drop in there. And I'm looking right here. And I'm following the one that I cut. And I'll stop when I get down to the bottom. And I'll go to this one, drop straight in there. Again, watching my razor line, making sure my chisel is at the right angle. Like little bitty baby taps. Hear the chisel change, you're bottomed out. Chisel changes sounds right in my razor line. This one's kind of gomered up, but that's okay. Follow it, still looking on the side there. And tighten up my thing a little bit. My piece is moving. Change sound of the chisel. Okay, I'm down. Okay, so now I'm going to cut these little guys off, right? Clear these out, and then come down to this razor line. My bevel's down. I'm just going to come in. Now remember, I can put my chisel on this corner because this actually is sticking up a very tiny baby bit when you put the box together. I'm not prying on it. I'm just resting and using it just kind of as a guide, really. I'm just kind of going to get rid of some of this big stuff in the corner. Like I said, this is just the way that I do it. That works for me. That I just found a workflow. You know? Okay. Now, I'm going to come in and we're going to take it down to that line. I'm not going to go completely to my razor line yet because this is sticking out. There's a lot of material there. So I'm just going to go take like a tiny bit of this off. Only going halfway. Now, I've got that down. Now I'm going to drop in my razor line and I'm going to put it in this corner, leaving a tiny bit of space there because it'll bruise a little bit because there's still material in there. So I'm going to almost go to that corner. I'm in my line and I'm going to go halfway. I put my chisel this way a little bit. I know it's exaggerated, but just a little bit I go that way. in my razor line again, go a little bit more. Okay, that looks clean. Now I'm going to go to this razor line. Again, I'm going to line up a little bit off of this and a little bit off of that when I go in. I have a piece of board underneath this so I don't booger up my already boogered up workbench. Go about halfway. About halfway. Flip her over. Same thing. There's a lot of material, so I'm going to take some of this material off first before I go in my razor line. That's probably good enough. Go in my razor line now on this side. Again, tilt my chisel that way just a tiny bit. Just a tiny skosh bit. I'm going to go all the way through to the other side. This one, I'm going to go all the way through. Well, we'll take this big piece off first. Now to my razor line. Just kind of make a mark a little bit. There's a lot of material there. A little bit. Move back over here. I'm going to go all the way through. Move back. Go all the way through. Okay. There. Put it back in the vise. I'm going to put this on top of in the middle of the vise, on top of the screw in there, because I'm going to be going down on it. And if you don't have a spacer, make spacers. They're great. All right. So now we're gonna trim the bottom and trim the sides up. So I'm standing here and I can see on both sides. I'm just shifting my head from one side to the other side where I can look down, and I'm putting my chisel just right flush with it, and I left a little bit of the razor line. I'm going to take that down, just turn my chisel around, do the same thing with this side, so I can, there we go, bevel down, and then I'm going to cut that piece off. And if you like, there's nothing wrong with coming in with a razor and cleaning it up like this. I do this often, you know, just do it like that. But we'll do it with the chisel so you can see it can be done with a chisel. I'm going to cut all that off. I'm being real easy and soft because I don't want to go too deep with it. Just clean my corner up. Okay, now to make sure that this is flat, this is what I do. I go bevel down, and I'm going to not pry against the corner, but use it kind of as a guide with my finger on there, and I'm going to run my chisel. You see those little fuzzies coming off? This is the only way that I figured that I can do this. I know there's 10 million different methods, but this seems to work. Now all the fuzzies are coming off at the same time. Okay? I'll just flip. I won't even move my body. I'll just go to the other side, trying to stay out of your light. Just trying to barely touch on it. Because what happens is sometimes you'll get a little ridge in the middle right here, and sometimes this will be higher and this will be higher, which is fine because remember we angled the chisel just a little bit. Now we flatten this whole surface out, so we just have to clean up this fuzzy corner. Same thing with this side. I'm gonna get my chisel, just work. Actually, this one looks pretty good. So I'm gonna bevel down. I'm gonna cut that little part off. Come with this side. Actually, no, this is all messed up. So we're gonna make sure that, see, I even came off. We didn't even cut all the way to the razor line on this one. Okay. Little bit messed up in the corner. There we go. Again, fuzzies off the inside edge. Remember, you're going to razor off this to make the matching part, but still you don't want to have a jacked up looking part. Okay, same process. Now you can see in here how it's not even close to being flat. Nice and easy. I know it doesn't seem like this will work, but it works. You see, I'm taking off the ends, that high spot in the middle. It's coming off in the middle of my chisel. Okay, so what we got? Okay, that doesn't look too bad. We can razor the part, the matching part. We can match it to this now. Okay, this is the part that it's going to go to. It's going to match to this part, the one we just cut. So the box will go together like this. So I'm going to drop this in my vise, and I'm going to keep the vise loose enough where I can move my piece of board around a little bit. And I like it just tiny bit. I'm talking about a tiny bit above this surface here. This is just another side of the box. I'm just using that as a guide. It can be whatever you want. You can use planes, the edge of a plane. I just think this is just what works for me. Just I can wrap my head around this. Okay, now I'm gonna tighten it down. So this is the outside. This is the outside of the box. So that the corner exists like that. This is number 4. So you can use spacers to square it up and do all kind of crazy stuff. Whatever method you choose. I'm just going to line up my, my sides. I'm just going to use this one side to feel of it, and I'm just going to do old school method. I'm just going to eyeball it. Once I eyeball it, and I'm happy with it. I'm going right to the inside, and there's a little lip, like I like, and then hold it down, and I very easily and very gently start marking it on the inside. I know you're in a bad position, you can't see me very well, but I apologize for that. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to undercut, like cut underneath. I'm trying to undercut it, like put my razor blade underneath there a little bit and cut. Light scores at first, and then a little bit heavier. It's kind of hard to read on the end grain for me for some reason. It's kind of hard for me to see, probably for everybody in the universe. I don't know. Some people can cut these blindfolded. I can inlay bow ties easy all day long. These, like I said, I'm still new at them, so it takes me a minute. And I'm not in a hurry. I'm just going to take my time. Okay. Got scored nice and easy on there. Let's go ahead and finish marking it. Okay, this is what we just marked, right? And we just raised it up. I went to the table saw and I marked the depth because I forgot to do that. So we just razored this, right? Now I'm just going to carry my line straight down, right? So I'm going to go inside my little groovy thing, my little razor mark, and I'm just going to push my tool up next to it and slowly go straight down with my tool, just like this. This one slowly goes straight down, light pressure of course, and then I always don't like doing this side. I feel backwards or something. Okay, so before we get carried away, we need to mark what's coming out. This is the corners that are actually going to go together. So what has to come out of this side, this has to come out, this piece has to come out, and this piece has to come out, right? So we're going to take these out, and I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to do the same exact thing to the other side. Okay, same situation. Pushing up against my fingers. I'm going to cut on my side that has the X on it, because on the other one I messed it up off camera. Pull it back, let the saw do the work. I'm going to cut kind of, corner to corner to my razor line, drop my hand down, let all the saw do all my work for me. Almost to my razor line. Same thing. I'm going to move over. I'm going to go in my waist area, leaving room, my razor line, room for it. So I'm gonna take care of that with the chisel. Cut corner to corner. I'm watching the side and I'm watching the top. Once I get an angle, I'm just gonna let the place that I've already cut guide my saw. I'm not pushing down. Just go to my razor mark. That's it. Inside my waist area, pulling back. Now I'm going to watch the side razor line and the top razor line. Barely letting the saw go into the wood, just letting it cut by itself. This is the one that I just sharpened too, so it works really well. Same thing. I'm real close to my razor line, making me nervous on this one. So I'm going to go a little bit slower. I'm going to still cut corner to corner, or angle, you know, and then I'm going to drop that front of that saw down, almost to my razor line. There. Now, for field expedience purposes, well, not field expedience, but to make this go faster, we're just going to go ahead and use the machine to cut these out. Okay, the way that I do the other side, you see it's a V. I put the small part of V up toward me, so I'll just cut to that. That way I will be sure I won't, if I do it this way, I'll cut into that. I don't want to do that. So I'll cut it like that, and I'll just go to my line there. Forgot to make my relief cut. That gets rid of that piece. Should have done that first time. There we go. Looks good. For these parts that's left in there, I'll just use the handsaw and I'll cut them out. It's a lot safer for me anyway. If I can screw it up, if there's something to screw up, I probably would do it. There. Now, same process. Let's clean this up. And you can see it split down right where I marked it with my razor on the side. Go in my razor line, and I'm gonna barely go. You see how it's splitting with it? With the razor that I put in, there's a little bit at the bottom. We'll clean that up later. This one is so thick that I'm just gonna split that in half if I can. Now I'm gonna go into my razor line. You gotta feel that it's in there. Sometimes it won't be in there, and I'm watching to make sure it's splitting on the line that I razored in there. I'm just going to leave that hanging tight right there. And the razor line. This is why I leave so much, because I've tried it 10 million different other ways, and just seems, like I said, this is just the method I came up with that works for me. And my razor line, I did pay attention. I do sharpen my tools a lot better than I used to. Now I'm coming off my line a little bit, so I got to readjust that. It's splitting it on the side. Okay, now I'm in my razor line. See, this one worked perfectly. You see how it just split right down when I put the chisel down? It split right down that razor line that I put in there. So that worked beautifully. So we're going to come in, we're going to take the bulk of this out, right? This thing always moves around on me. I got to finish my batch. Just take the bulk of this off, bulk of these out, you know. Hopefully the camera will stay in focus. Just look how thick this one is. So I'm going to go a little bit high on it. And then come down, get this one. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. Now I'm going to go to my line here. Okay, I handle the other side a little bit different. You see how it's shorter on this side and a little bit longer on the top side there? I do this side first because I don't want to cut into that accidentally. So I'll start here and Same thing, just this is such close to the razor line, I can just drop right into it. And I'll go halfway. This one's a little thick, so I'm going to take a little bit extra off before I go on the razor line. See how it bruised it a little bit? Now I'm going to go on the razor line, it won't bruise it. Just a little tiny bit. Scoot over. I'll go halfway. I'll go right into my razor line. Halfway. Flip it. Go right in my line. I can see the larger part. I can see this part down here, that larger area, so I'm watching for that. I'll go in, then I'll turn my tool a little bit, and then finish taking it out. Same thing, go into my razor line, turn my tool a little bit, cut that off, go into my other razor line, put it in, turn my tool. Man, there's a lot on this one. I have to take a little bit off this one. Alright, now I'm going to go on my razor line at an angle, just from the get-go. There. Okay, now we're going to vise it up and then clean it up. Alright, same situation. I'm going to get in a position where I can see it, clean up any of this crazy stuff, bevel down. I'm going to run it on here, clean this up. Try not to get in front of the camera lens. I can even see this one isn't exactly straight, so I'm on top of it and push straight down. Get this one. Clean up the bottom, just like we did on the other one. Nice and easy. You see it's coming out in the middle. The shavings are coming out in the middle of the thing because that thing isn't flat. This side, shavings are coming out in the middle because it's not flat. Now it's flat. Okay. Looks like that corner's rounded a little bit. Something's not right with that. Okay, so same with this one. You get this. I can look at that and see it's all jacked up. Okay, gonna come down. Test fit. Okay, so this is number 4. We'll go down and see what it fits like. Let's see. Well, did we get it the first time? Did I get it? Let's see. Well, these will be cleaned up, a little bit more cleaned up on the bottom. Any gaps that are left in there, if I made like a little mistake on right here, once I start gluing this together, I'll just put a piece of oak in there and it'll look perfect. So the only thing I got to do is this other side, and the grain's going to wrap around, as you can see. So this little cigar box / tobacco box is coming together, and we're going to put a little divider in the middle. We're going to make a slidey top for it. It's going to be a real cool little box. I'll do this side off camera, and we'll cut the groove in the bottom and do the other stuff to it. It's going to be really nice. Seeing how I'm so awesome, I forgot to turn the camera on when I cut this in half on the bandsaw. But I went ahead and did that, started flattening it out. Completely forgot to turn the camera on. It's a little cut, a little bowed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this, and I already started to do a little bit. I got it set up in my dogs, got a number 4 set real light, and I'm just coming in through and taking out the high spot. Now we're going to cut the groove for the bottom, for the slot for the bottom of the box to go in there, and I'm going to cut this groove on 2 panels with the Stanley 55, and I'm going to go 2 on the router so you can see that. Okay, we're ready to cut the bottom, kind of sort of to get it to fit in there. And obviously it's too big. And I made one of these tools. I can never remember the name of this thing. I should make one. They have them, well, you can buy them, but I'm going to make one. You can unscrew it and you can adjust it, but I just made mine, you know, with tape, and I always make it every time I make a box. There we go. So it looks like this is a little bit, I need to cut a little bit more out of that side. But anyway, so now I know to cut the box, the bottom of the box by that big, and then I'm gonna cut it a tiny bit bigger, and then I can hand plane it to adjust to fit perfectly to size inside the box. And then we'll flip it over, and then we'll cut the thing for the top. It's going to be this big by this big. Let me turn this around. That big by that big. Okay, so far so good. If I can get the right side to the, get that bottom groove in there, will it go? Oh yes, check it out. Excellent, we have success. Oh, that's going to be so cool. It's going to be so nice. And the dovetails go this way, the structural integrity. So the top will fit inside, and we'll pull the top this way. So when the user is pulling this thing in and out, the drawer won't, you know, come apart after, you know, a lot of use. And also we got to put a divider in here too. So far so good. This is looking really, really awesome. We need to make the top, the little slidey part, you know, the top goes in and out. And I'm using the same measurement from I did the bottom, and I'm going to cut the top just a little bit bigger than this. So the top will be sliding in and out like this. So we will measure right here and just a little bit bigger, just to give me some playroom. I've got it clamped together so I can get a more accurate of a reading for my top to go in there. You can see my top still is quite large, but that's okay. And it's too long, but that's okay. So I'm going to figure where I need to put the mark, the groove on the inside and the back, you know, on the sides and the back, where to slide this thing in and out. I've got to cut the front of this thing off. So this will be measured up, and it'll be sliding out this way. So that is what we're going to do now. This is a box I made for my dowel, you know, dowel centering thing. And I like the thickness of this top. I use this often. This hasn't broken yet, so I just set my gauge to the thickness of that, and then that's how big I'll make these walls here. And I'm just going to score a line, and that's how thick my slidey things are going to be. And I'll do that all the way around. Well, on the three sides, we'll just mark a line. It's my depth, and we'll get the thickness. So it goes in like this. Now I need to mark down and find out exactly where this groove is going to go on this box. And the way that I do that is I just mark I just go from the line that I razored in there, you know, with my marking gauge, and I'll just set my marking gauge to that line from the top going down. I just put it into the razor mark from the other gauge, and I will tighten. I know my hand's in the way. I'll tighten down. So that's how deep the groove goes, and the bottom of the groove will go from this other marking gauge for, you know, for your tenon markers. So That's my 2 marks that I'm going to mark on the side of this, and that's how far. But we're going to do a test piece to make sure we don't mess that up. Here's my test cut. There is my gauge, so we got it right off the gauge. I've got all the grooves cut for the top, where to slide the top on. Now I've got to mark to cut this piece out here, and I'm simply just going to mark it with a pencil. And when I cut this, I'm going to be super careful to like split that line with the table saw, and I will plane this down to the final size. Okay, I got that front piece cut. You can tell it's not completely flush with it, and I did that on purpose because I want to sneak up on that with a hand plane. We have to make the top look like this. So everywhere you see the chalk has got to come out, and everything is a through cut. So I'm going to cut these first and then cut this so I won't get tear out. The minimum is not as tear out. I've already set the machine up. Let's see what happens. Oh, I'm talking a tiny bit too big. So we're gonna come in with the hand plane, and we're gonna make this fit, and we're just gonna keep testing it out and keep going down until we get it perfect. So rather than putting a divider in the middle of the box to divide the tobacco from the pipe, I decided to go ahead and make another little box. And on this little box, we did a little carving. I'm going to show you how I did this carving. This box was made exactly like the big box was, so there's no reason to cover this in the video again. So all I did was just pencil this in, just guessed where the lines go. I just drew some curvy lines, put some leaves on them, and I'm just going to follow these lines with a V chisel and a gouge, and we'll make this little decoration, and then we'll color it in with some paint. All I'm going to do is follow the line with my V gouge with small little bitty baby taps. I am not a master carver by any means. I'm not even a carver. However, I can do these little bitty plants. And we'll just follow the main line. I know my hand's in the way right now, but we'll turn and you'll be able to see the gouge go into the workpiece. Just going to follow it up to the very end, and then we'll do the little veins coming off of it. Here we go. Now we'll hit the veins coming off of the little leaves. And we'll just keep going on this side. We'll turn the workpiece around and do the other side. So I'm going to finish up the veins, and then when we cut the leaves, I'll show you how I'm going to cut the leaves. Okay, with a very small gouge, I will make my little leaves. And I just move to the other side. Rather than moving my workpiece, I just move my body because I got my workpiece clamped in. And I just take that piece out. And we just work around. This one did not come out very well. There it goes. And we'll just work our way around on all these little branches, popping our little leaves off, and then we will color it. I'm going to go ahead and finish all the leaves up off camera. Okay, we finished carving this side. Let's go ahead and put the paint in, and we'll sand it down, make it look all pretty. So all I do is get spray paint, sprayed in the little deal there, and then I'll just get my Q-tip, and I'll just do my leaves real quick, and then I'll come back with a stick, and I'll do the branches. I'll just follow the line, and this helps from preventing it bleeding into the grain that's next to it. So we'll do all the branches, let it dry, and we'll sand it down. Let's get the dust out of here with a nylon brush. We'll come back and get a little bit of this out of there, a little bleed that's bleeding out into the grain. We're going to come back and hit it with 220, assemble the box, do the entire outside of the box with 220. This will be done. We'll put linseed oil on there or tongue oil. We haven't decided which one, but that's the decoration. It goes like this. Very cool. We're going to apply glue to all the surfaces. Once that's complete, we will assemble the drawer, put clamps on it, make sure it's square, let it dry, apply the oils on it and the finishes, and then we'll have a happy little drawer. This has been sitting overnight, and I didn't even have to sit that long. It's just that was the finish of my day when I glued this up. And it's super cold this morning. It's about 6:30 on Saturday morning, and thought I'd come in and finish this box today. So we're going to take this apart, sand it down, get it ready, see what it looks like. Very nice. Let us sand this down and pretty it all up. I'm using 600 grit. I already used 240. Now I'm going to 600 with the orbital. I've come through and hand sanded the entire box with 600. I broke all the corners in the entire box. And I'm going to burnish the surface, and I'm just going to use some of the shavings that I made to make the box that came off from the planes. And what I'm going to do is start burnishing the surface, and that's going to start closing up those grains a little bit and give it a lot more smoother surface. Burnishing it will. It's like a really super fine grit sandpaper. I'm going to go through the whole box and burnish this thing. Okay, it's time to glue the bigger box together, and all I'm going to do is just apply glue to all the surfaces and just glue the whole thing together all at the same time. Well, there's no really other way that you can do that, I don't think. Assembly time. Not really worried about glue on the outside of this box, and because I can clean it up later. So I've marked the front of my box. That's down. This is the front. So this will slide in this way. Front of the box. Line my numbers up. That's number 1. It's number 2 side. I checked it for square, and it seems to be good to go. I had to, square it up with that cross piece, that cross clamp. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and spend some time off camera. I'm just going to go ahead and sand this down. Been on here about 45 minutes. Take the clamps off and see what we got. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut this top to fit the front of this thing. We're going to put a little deal in here where you can get your fingers and open up this box. Okay, we're going to come up an inch. Yeah, it should be fine. An inch here. Come over here an inch. The tool is already set up from where we want to stop our mark at, right? So we're about right there, right here, and is that a big enough spot? Yeah, I think that's a big enough spot. So from here we'll draw our line where we're going to razor across. And we'll go just like that. So now we'll have to make this mark inside here. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay, we're going to score this line here so we can get that out. I put a little spacer in here because this wasn't exactly straight, but it's straight enough. It's almost perfect. So I'm going to go in between the marks that we put on there, and I'm going to make me a good, decent razor line in here so we can have something to chisel to. So I'm just going to come down with my chisel, and I'm just going to take out just a tiny bit to that razor line. And I went a little bit too deep with my razor there. I mean, not my razor, but my chisel. So now I can establish, you know, that nice crisp line. Forgot to put my stop line, so we're going to get this and we're going to mark how far the fingers go in, you know, something like this. I'm going to go about the width, almost the width of this tool here. Just kind of draw me a line. So we're going to work in between this line and this line and these two lines, and we're going to start taking all this material out, and we're going to make it angled like this. Okay, so let's keep going. I forgot to put this line here. Okay, let's see how this works with the box. And the groove is cut. Oh, that's nice. Open it up, do your thing, close it. I've got it centered up to 600 grit with the orbital. Now, with the 600, I'm coming and breaking the edges. And giving that soft look, and then we're going to come back and we're going to burnish the entire box. All we got to do now is burnish it, and this will take a few minutes. I don't know if the lens is picking up the color change. It's already starting to change colors a little bit. I love the way that it does that. It's really, really smooth, starts to get a dull shine to it. Okay, the only thing that I know left to do before we put any kind of protectant on here is to brand it. And I always put a little water on there, and that helps prevent the hot iron from going into the surrounding area. I've already marked where I want it. And we'll see if I can get a good brand. Here we go. That's one of them. Roll it around. Didn't all the way go because of the grain. But there we go. So we've got both of them branded. We're going with bold linseed oil. I don't have the homemade stuff, so I'm just going with the store-bought stuff. Oops. And we're going to put a nice generous coat of bold linseed oil on this. I got to put something on it just because this is one of the best, most satisfying parts to a project. I don't know anybody who doesn't like doing this. It makes it look so nice, so finished. All right, I'm going to rub the excess of this off, let it dry for a little bit. I'll show you the results.